What if the reason so many people over 50 feel weaker every year is because the modern diet quietly removed the very foods the body needs to maintain muscle, strength, and energy? After 50, muscle loss doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, quietly. You notice it when carrying groceries feels heavier, when your legs feel tired faster, when recovery takes days instead of hours, when your body starts feeling older than your mind. And the strange part? Some of the most powerful foods for rebuilding muscle are not expensive supplements, fancy protein powders, or complicated diets. They're cheap, easy to find, and in many cases, completely ignored. In this video, we're going to explore 7 high-protein foods that can help support muscle growth, recovery, strength, and healthy aging after 50, starting with simple foods most Americans walk past every single week. And wait until you see number 5. Because it doesn't even look like a protein food, if your goal is not simply to live longer, but to stay strong while doing it. This video may completely change the way you look at food. And if you enjoy learning about simple foods that help the body stay stronger naturally after 50, subscribe to the channel. Because this is exactly the kind of practical, science-backed knowledge we explore here. Now, let's begin with one tiny food most people underestimate completely. Number 1. Pumpkin seeds, the mineral-rich muscle snack. Most people think pumpkin seeds are just something you throw on top of a salad in the fall, a small snack, a decoration, something healthy, but forgettable. But what many people don't realize is that these tiny seeds contain a combination of nutrients that becomes incredibly important after the age of 50. Because muscle is not built by protein alone, the body also needs minerals to contract muscles properly, recover efficiently, maintain testosterone levels, support nerve function, and produce energy. And pumpkin seeds are surprisingly rich in many of those exact nutrients, especially magnesium. Now, this matters more than most people think. Magnesium plays a major role in muscle function, recovery, sleep quality, and energy production. Yet studies suggest that many older adults don't get enough of it consistently. And when magnesium levels stay low, the body often feels it. More fatigue, more cramps, poor recovery, lower energy, sometimes even weaker exercise performance. But pumpkin seeds also contain protein, zinc, iron, and healthy fats that help support muscle maintenance in a more balanced way. In fact, zinc itself is deeply connected to muscle repair and healthy hormone function, something that naturally changes with age. And here's what's interesting. Long before protein bars and powdered supplements existed, seeds like these were already being consumed in traditional diets across parts of Central America and other cultures, where food was valued not just for calories, but for strength and endurance. Tiny foods, dense nutrition, the kind of foods modern diets slowly pushed aside. And the best part? They're incredibly easy to use. You can sprinkle them on Greek yogurt, blend them into smoothies, add them to oatmeal, mix them into salads, or simply eat a handful as an afternoon snack instead of ultra-processed foods that drain energy instead of rebuilding the body. Because after 50, every meal either supports strength or slowly works against it. And pumpkin seeds are one of those simple foods that quietly help the body rebuild from the inside out. But the next food takes this idea even further. Because unlike most plant foods, it contains something many people don't expect at all, a complete protein profile. Number 2. Edamame, the Japanese protein secret. If most people see edamame at all, they usually think of a side dish at a sushi restaurant, something light, something trendy, maybe even just an appetizer. But hidden inside these small green pods is something surprisingly rare in the plant world, a complete protein. That means edamame contains all 9 essential amino acids the body needs to repair and build muscle, including leucine, one of the key amino acids involved in stimulating muscle protein synthesis. And after 50, that becomes incredibly important, because the aging body doesn't respond to protein the same way it did at 25. Researchers now know that older adults often need higher quality protein sources to properly activate muscle rebuilding pathways. In other words, the body becomes more resistant to muscle growth over time, which means nutrient density matters more than ever, and edamame quietly delivers exactly that. Protein, fiber, magnesium, folate, potassium, all inside one inexpensive food that can be found frozen in almost every major grocery store in America. But what makes edamame especially interesting is the cultural pattern behind it. For generations, soybean-based foods have been staples in parts of Japan and other Asian regions known for longevity, mobility in old age, and lower rates of certain chronic diseases. Of course, no single food creates health by itself, but traditional cultures often understood something modern diets forgot. Small daily habits matter more than occasional extremes. And edamame fits perfectly into that philosophy. It's simple, affordable, easy to prepare, and surprisingly satisfying. You can steam it with sea salt for a quick snack, add it to rice bowls, mix it into stir-fries, toss it into salads, or combine it with quinoa and vegetables for a high-protein meal that feels light without leaving you hungry an hour later. And unlike many ultra-processed, healthy snacks, edamame gives the body nutrients that actually contribute to rebuilding tissue instead of simply filling space. That difference matters, because after 50, recovery becomes one of the biggest hidden keys to staying strong, not just how hard you exercise, but how well the body repairs afterward. And the next food on this list may be one of the most underestimated recovery foods in America. In fact, many people stopped eating it simply because it looked old-fashioned, while scientists quietly kept studying how effective it really is for preserving muscle during sleep. Number 3. Cottage cheese. The overnight muscle repair food. For years, cottage cheese developed a strange reputation. People started seeing it as outdated, bland, something your grandparents used to eat. And while the fitness world became obsessed with flashy supplements, expensive powders, and trendy superfoods, this simple refrigerator staple quietly remained one of the most effective muscle-supporting foods for older adults, especially after 50. Because cottage cheese contains a type of protein called casein, and unlike fast-digesting proteins that enter the bloodstream quickly and disappear just as fast, casein digests slowly over several hours. That slow release changes everything. While you sleep, the body continues repairing tissue, regulating hormones, and recovering from daily stress. But during long periods without food, muscle breakdown can also increase, especially in older adults. Casein helps slow that process down. In fact, studies have shown that consuming slow-digesting protein before bed may help support overnight muscle protein synthesis and recovery. In simple terms, the body keeps receiving building material while you sleep, and after 50, that becomes incredibly valuable, because recovery is no longer automatic. The body needs support, consistency, nutrients delivered steadily instead of randomly. That's part of why traditional foods often worked so well. They nourished the body gradually, not just with sudden spikes of calories and sugar. And cottage cheese is surprisingly rich in more than just protein. It also contains calcium, selenium, B vitamins, and nutrients that support bones, metabolism, and muscle contraction, all deeply connected to healthy aging. But what makes it even more powerful is how practical it is. No complicated preparation, no expensive subscription powders, no miracle marketing, just real food. You can eat it before bed with berries and cinnamon. Blend it into smoothies for extra creaminess and protein. Spread it on toast. Mix it with fruit. Or even add it to scrambled eggs for a surprisingly filling breakfast. And because it's relatively inexpensive in most American grocery stores, it becomes one of the easiest high-protein habits to maintain consistently. And consistency matters more than intensity. That's something many people learn too late, because muscle after 50 is not built in one workout. It's built through repeated recovery, meal after meal, night after night, choice after choice. But the next food on this list brings something different entirely, not just protein, but powerful anti-inflammatory nutrients that may help aging muscles and joints recover together. And for generations, some of the world's longest-living coastal cultures relied on it constantly. Number 4. Canned sardines. The tiny fish that fights muscle. Aging few foods are judged more unfairly than sardines. For many people, they immediately trigger resistance. Too small, too strong-smelling, too old-fashioned. And yet, hidden inside these inexpensive little fish is one of the most powerful combinations of nutrients for aging muscles the body can receive from real food. Because sardines don't just provide protein, they provide support for the entire recovery system. High-quality protein, omega-3 fatty acids, calcium, vitamin D, B12, selenium. Nutrients deeply connected to muscle preservation, inflammation control, bone health, and energy production. And after 50, that combination becomes incredibly valuable. Because one of the hidden reasons many people lose strength with age is not simply lack of exercise. It's chronic inflammation. Low-grade inflammation can quietly affect joints, recovery speed, mobility, and even how efficiently muscles rebuild after activity. That's where omega-3 fats become so important. Researchers have studied how omega-3s may help support muscle protein synthesis and reduce inflammatory stress in aging adults. Some evidence even suggests they may help muscles respond better to exercise over time, and sardines happen to be one of the cheapest omega-3 rich foods available in America. But there's another reason sardines stand out. Unlike many larger fish, sardines sit lower on the food chain, which generally means lower mercury levels compared to bigger predatory fish. Small fish, massive nutritional return. And culturally, foods like sardines have long been staples in Mediterranean coastal regions associated with longevity and active aging. Places where older adults often continue walking daily, cooking traditionally, and staying physically active far later into life. Again, no single food creates that lifestyle alone. But patterns matter. Traditional cultures rarely feared simple whole foods the way modern diets often do. And sardines are one of those forgotten foods modern culture abandoned while chasing heavily marketed alternatives. The practical side is surprisingly easy, too. You can eat them on toast with olive oil and lemon. Add them to salads, mix them into rice bowls, pair them with crackers, or even mash them with avocado for a high-protein spread packed with healthy fats. And once people get past the idea of what sardines are supposed to taste like, many are shocked by how satisfying they actually become. Because after 50, the body often responds best not to the newest foods, but to the foods humans have trusted for generations. And the next item on this list may surprise you even more, because it doesn't look like a protein food at all. In fact, most people use it like seasoning, while completely missing the fact that it may quietly upgrade almost every meal it touches. Number 5. Nutritional yeast. The forgotten protein flake. At first glance, nutritional yeast doesn't look impressive at all. It looks like seasoning. Tiny yellow flakes people sprinkle on popcorn or pasta. Nothing about it screams muscle-building food, and that's exactly why so many people overlook it. But nutritional yeast is surprisingly rich in protein, B vitamins, and nutrients that become increasingly important for energy and recovery after 50. Especially vitamin B12. Now this matters more than many people realize. B12 plays a major role in nerve health, energy production, red blood cell formation, and overall vitality. And as people age, absorbing enough B12 can become more difficult for the body. Low levels can sometimes contribute to fatigue, weakness, brain fog, and low energy, symptoms many people mistakenly assume are simply part of getting older. But nutritional yeast offers something else too, a surprisingly concentrated protein boost for such a small food. A few spoonfuls can add extra protein and nutrients to meals without requiring expensive supplements or major dietary changes. And unlike heavily processed protein snacks, nutritional yeast works quietly in the background, simple, practical, easy to use consistently. What makes it even more interesting is its flavor. It has a naturally savory, cheesy taste that makes healthy foods feel more satisfying, which means people often end up eating more nutrient-dense meals without feeling deprived. And consistency becomes much easier when healthy food actually tastes enjoyable. That's one of the hidden secrets traditional cultures understood well. Food was nourishment, but it was also pleasure, something sustainable, something people could continue for decades, and nutritional yeast fits perfectly into modern routines because it's incredibly versatile. You can sprinkle it on eggs, vegetables, popcorn, soups, rice bowls, pasta, avocado toast. Some people even blend it into sauces or soups to increase protein and create a richer flavor naturally. And because it's shelf-stable and relatively inexpensive, it becomes one of the easiest long-term upgrades for people trying to support muscle maintenance after 50. Tiny habit, big nutritional return. Because sometimes the body doesn't need dramatic change. It needs repeated nourishment, and the next food on this list proves that perfectly. In fact, for generations it was considered one of the ultimate working people foods because it provided steady energy, fullness, and surprisingly powerful muscle-supporting nutrition for very little money. Number 6. Split peas. The soup that rebuilds strength. There's a reason split pea soup survived for generations, not because it was trendy, not because it was expensive, and certainly not because it was heavily marketed. It survived because it worked. For centuries, split peas were considered one of the most practical foods for workers, farmers, and families who needed lasting energy and nourishment from inexpensive ingredients. And modern nutrition science is beginning to explain why. Split peas are surprisingly rich in plant protein, fiber, iron, potassium, and slow-digesting carbohydrates that help provide steady energy instead of rapid crashes. That combination matters even more after 50, because one of the biggest hidden problems in aging is unstable energy. People often feel exhausted, not simply because they're older, but because their meals constantly spike blood sugar and leave the body undernourished afterward. Split peas work differently. Their high fiber content slows digestion, helping the body release energy more gradually while also supporting fullness and digestive health. And unlike many processed convenience foods, they nourish without overwhelming the body. But the protein side is what makes split peas especially interesting for muscle support. A single bowl can provide a surprisingly meaningful amount of plant protein while also delivering minerals the body needs for muscle contraction and recovery. And when combined with foods like whole grains or other protein sources, they become even more supportive nutritionally. But perhaps the most powerful thing about split peas is what they represent. They remind us that strength was once built from simple kitchens, not expensive systems. Long before the supplement industry existed, people relied on slow-cooked, nourishing meals that supported the body steadily over time. Warm foods, dense nutrition, simple ingredients, and split pea soup remains one of the easiest ways to bring that idea back into modern life. You can cook it with onions, garlic, carrots, and herbs. Add shredded chicken or turkey for extra protein. Prepare large batches for meal prep, or simply keep it as an inexpensive recovery meal during colder months. And because split peas are shelf-stable and extremely affordable in America, they become one of the highest nutritional returns for the money on this entire list, which is probably why older generations respected foods like this far more than modern culture does today, because they understood something important. Food wasn't just entertainment, it was physical resilience. And now we arrive at the final food on this list, the one many people avoid immediately, the one modern diets almost erased completely, yet nutrient for nutrient. It may be one of the most powerful muscle-supporting foods a person over 50 can eat. Number 7. Chicken liver, the most nutrient-dense muscle food. Few foods create stronger reactions than liver. Some people grew up eating it regularly, others avoid it instantly. But what's fascinating is this. While modern nutrition trends pushed organ meats out of the spotlight, many traditional cultures considered them some of the most valuable foods a human being could eat. Especially during times of physical recovery, weakness, fatigue, or aging. And nutritionally, chicken liver is astonishing. Gram for gram, it contains an incredible concentration of protein, iron, vitamin B12, folate, selenium, copper, and other nutrients deeply connected to energy production, oxygen transport, muscle recovery, and cellular repair. In simple terms, it gives the body raw materials many people unknowingly lack after 50. Now this matters because aging muscles don't only struggle from lack of exercise, they also struggle when the body lacks the nutrients required to rebuild tissue efficiently. And one of the most common hidden issues in older adults is lower iron and B12 status, which can contribute to fatigue, weakness, lower stamina, brain fog, and reduced physical performance. Chicken liver naturally provides both in highly bioavailable forms, meaning the body can absorb and use them efficiently. But there's another reason organ meats were so respected historically. Older generations wasted very little. They understood that some of the most nourishing parts of the animal were often the least glamorous, not flashy, not modern, but deeply functional. And while many people today spend huge amounts of money chasing superfoods, chicken liver quietly remains one of the cheapest nutrient-dense protein foods sitting in grocery stores across America. Which creates an interesting question. What if the issue was never that healthy food became inaccessible, but that modern culture simply stopped teaching people how powerful certain traditional foods actually were? Because liver isn't just about protein. It's about rebuilding capacity, energy, recovery, resilience, the things many people slowly feel slipping away after 50. And, surprisingly, there are ways to make it far more approachable than most people expect. Some people saute it with onions and garlic, others blend small amounts into ground beef for burgers or meatballs. Some prepare it as pâté with herbs and spices, and many discover that the flavor becomes much milder when cooked properly. But regardless of preparation, the bigger lesson remains the same. The body often responds powerfully to foods humans relied on long before modern health trends existed. Foods rooted in nourishment instead of marketing. Because after 50, muscle becomes more than appearance. It becomes protection. Protection against frailty, against loss of mobility, against dependence. And the people who stay strongest longest are often not the ones following extreme systems, but the ones consistently giving the body the nutrients it has needed all along. What's remarkable about every food on this list is that none of them are glamorous. No celebrity branding, no miracle promises, no expensive subscription boxes, just simple foods that quietly give the body what it needs to rebuild. And maybe that's the biggest misunderstanding about strength after 50. People think the body suddenly stops responding, but in many cases, the body is still trying to repair itself. It's simply missing the raw materials, the protein, the minerals, the amino acids, the recovery nutrients modern diets often lack, because muscle loss doesn't only affect appearance, it affects balance, mobility, energy, confidence, independence. In many ways, muscle becomes a longevity organ after 50. And the beautiful thing is this: the body can still adapt remarkably well at almost any age. Study after study continues showing that older adults can improve strength, preserve muscle, and support healthier aging when proper nutrition and resistance training are combined consistently, not perfectly, consistently. And maybe that's why traditional cultures often stayed stronger longer. Their meals were built around nourishment first, simple foods, repeated daily, over years. No extremes, no obsession, just consistent rebuilding. Because sometimes the most powerful health changes are not hidden in expensive solutions. They're hidden in ordinary foods people stopped paying attention to. So if there's one thing to remember from this video, let it be this. Getting older does not automatically mean getting weaker. The body still wants to rebuild, still wants to recover, still wants to stay strong. But after 50, it becomes far more sensitive to what you feed it consistently. And sometimes the foods that support strength the most are not the expensive ones modern culture pushes constantly. They're the simple foods that quietly nourished generations before us, foods that were always there. You just weren't taught to see them this way. So now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these foods do you already eat regularly? And which one surprised you the most? Leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and join the channel for more simple, science-backed foods that help support strength, energy, and healthy aging naturally after 50. Because your body may be older, but your ability to rebuild is far from gone.